Hi everybody, this is Ingrid Karazinger, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about why we are afraid of the dark. I think that every child experiences at some points the fear of the dark, and sometimes we grow up and we are still afraid of the dark as adults, whether it's a dark hallway or you walk by something that you can't see what's in there. No, that's okay, I don't want to go in there because it's dark, you can't see. And there's an underlying fear there of something, and we don't always talk about what is that fear of. What is it that we think is there? In my 20 plus years doing this work and growing up as a medium, there are many situations where as a child you wake up at night and you feel something in the room, or you could be doing something and you feel like somebody's touching your shoulder, or that someone's behind you, or you're being watched. These are very common things to experience, and of course we don't talk a whole lot about them. We don't really understand the phenomenon, and so there's just kind of this accepted fear of the dark. So let's talk about for a minute, what is that fear of? What is it that is in the dark that we are feeling or sensing? So I'm going to start off by saying it is not necessarily something that's only there in the dark, meaning that those things, those feelings, those presences are there all the time. It's just at night you are more relaxed. It's usually quieter. There may be less people. Others may be sleeping. So you have the sensory deprivation that you may have during, let's say, meditation, where you are sitting quietly and you're tuning in and you're really focusing on what is around you and what you feel outside of the physical, what you see with your eyes. So at night, in the dark, there tends to be that type of sensory deprivation where those senses are heightened, because you might not necessarily use your eyes as much. Your other senses are heightened, and of course that is the sixth sense especially we're talking about. Everybody has it. Children have it very strongly. We're born with it. It is just another sense, just like the other senses. It's just that because there's not a lot of education around it, that a lot of children get shut down at an early age with exploring their sixth sense. So there's been just this kind of phenomenon of shutting down our sixth sense. And what we need to focus on is really reopening that, understanding it, and hopefully educating future generations how to use their sixth sense. So let's talk about what is the presence that we see or feel or sense when we are in the dark that makes us afraid. So there are a couple things that may be there. One is you could have loved ones who have passed over coming to visit. Now, a lot of times they do it during dream state, either when you're falling asleep or you're waking up in the morning is a time that you kind of remember lucidly a visit maybe, or them having a conversation with you. But oftentimes they are just hanging around, watching you, watching over you, but they can come off as a creepy presence because you aren't understanding what is this feeling that I'm having. There's somebody in the room. So one thing that I do suggest is basically taking a moment when you feel that to close your eyes, to take a deep breath, and just go into kind of a meditative state so that you can just ask in your mind's eye, who is in the room? Who is here right now? And just see what comes to you, what comes to mind. You might see a picture of your grandmother in your mind. You may have the feeling, or you may have words that are from your mother who has passed over. And it's really about connecting and understanding so that you can maybe start a dialogue with them. In your mind's eye, you can ask them questions. Maybe there's something that they want to tell you, but just be open to that. And it does help to write it down, so you may want to have a piece of paper and you can either write the questions and just keep writing as answers pop in your mind, or you can do it as an exercise where you just simply do it in meditation. So these are just a couple easy ways to discover what is in the dark to get through that fear. There are a couple other things that it may be. So I'm going to be reaching a little bit out here for some of you. And one is it could be an interdimensional being, someone who is not necessarily of this earth. And they could be in or from another dimension. They could also be a species that is from another planet. And I hate the word alien because it just has all these negative connotations, but basically a being that is not human, that is traveled or projecting itself from where its location is so that it may study or observe. This is very common, actually, because we are just as interesting as, let's say, how we study animals on Earth. We do a lot of research on animals, and usually in their what's the best research is watching them in their natural habitats and taking notes. And so we do have more advanced species who are watching us and trying to understand us and are fascinated. So those beings, there's a couple things that can happen there. One is when you have an interdimensional being, what can happen is the frequency that they're on is very different than ours, and it can put us in a bit of a paralysis, meaning that their frequency is sped up and ours is a little slower, and it basically slows ours down more, meaning that sometimes we can feel heavy. If you're sleeping, you wake up like that with a being in the room that's interdimensional, you may end up having this feeling of paralysis, like you can't move, and it takes you a little while to be able to maybe get up and walk out of the room. Again, in these situations, it's also very helpful to take a moment to close your eyes and just think in your mind's eye, just ask who is in the room now. So if you do see an interdimensional being, if you do sense that it's someone other than a loved one, what I suggest at this point is to just say, only those for my highest could be here now, only those for my highest could be here now, and all others must leave. And imagine a single tiny bubble opening up and creating a bubble around you, big enough for the room or the whole house. And you can even see sometimes when you're imagining that everything is kind of pushed out, that may have been there just kind of hanging out and watching you, and you don't like that. It is your space, your free will, and you are perfectly in your right to basically ask them to leave. So you may do that if you feel fear. Otherwise, you can also attempt communication. But again, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that if you're doing it alone or if you're not experienced. You may ask a channel, a medium, someone who has a little experience with communicating with interdimensional beings, or even your loved ones, to come in and assist you with that. Now, there is another type of entity it could be, and yes, I am talking about ghost energy. So this is the most common misconception, that there are just ghosts hanging out. Now, I'm going to say that sometimes that is the case. Sometimes there is an entity there that is still stuck to the house, or it may be something that is attached to you for some reason. A lot of times those are what I call memory imprints. They are not a soul, they are not a being, but they are a piece of whoever was there before. They are a piece of someone who may have attached to you. They basically imprinted their life experiences, and that personified into kind of an energy form that has a very basic thought process. These forms you can't really communicate with, because again, it's like a picture on the wall. It's not a being that has free will and thought and that you can have a conversation with. So again, these can happen where you feel very afraid because you're like, I don't know what that is at all. Or you think this is a ghost, and of course everybody feels fear around that, even though most of the time those are really just non-entities. They're just energy forms, and they can be swept out like cobwebs. You do feel like there's someone or something that is stuck there that needs your assistance, or you feel like, I really want to help whoever it is, a great idea, which always works for me, is to open up a doorway. I kind of open up near the ceiling and just imagine, that's a doorway to the light, to heaven, to the next phase in their consciousness. And I just ask them, please go through the doorway. And sometimes I kind of give them a nudge, but imagine them going through that doorway and closing it and giving them love and blessings. Usually I don't feel a thing again after that. That's usually a very helpful resource. And again, I've been doing this a long time, and it really does work. I want to empower you to be able to do something about the feeling that you have. So please take my advice, try these tricks, let me know, comment below and let me know how your experience was. I would love to hear how it goes for you, and feel free to subscribe to me so that you can see lots more videos that are coming up on psychic development. If you'd like to learn more about me or read more of my educational articles on these subjects that are completely free, just go to my website, readingsbyingrid.com. That's readingsbyingrid.com, and I have a lot of great information on there that's accessible, as well as here in my YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody. I hope you're a little less afraid of the dark tonight when you go to sleep. Blessings and namaste.